Okay. Okay. So, guys, in our last session, we have discussed, right, what are the different Microsoft web technologies we have, right? Starting from ASP.NET Web Form, then ASP.NET MVC, ASP.NET Web API, then it comes ASP.NET Core MVC, Core Web API, then it is also introduced something called ASP.NET Core Blazor framework, right? And once we discuss this thing, right, then we have discussed, right, what is the migration path, what is the right platform or framework that what you need to use, right, to develop applications. Then we have also give a brief introduction to ASP.NET Core. Why ASP.NET Core? What is ASP.NET Core, right? What is the difference between ASP.NET Framework and ASP.NET Core Framework, right? What do we mean by open source? What do we mean by cross-platform, right? How it is providing, I mean, how performance it is better than the other framework, right? What is Microsoft, right? Provide that information I have also given to you guys, right? Then we have also discussed, right, what are the different .NET Core support policy and the release life cycle, right? How much supports it is going to give for each version. What do we mean by long-term support? What do we mean by, right, short-term supports? When the next version is going to be released? What is the current latest stable versions, right? That is what we have discussed. Then we have also discussed what if you are coming from ASP.NET MVC or ASP.NET Web API framework, right? Then when I am going to start developing the application, then you will not find it at a global.x class file. You will not find with config file. You will not find RAID, HTTP handlers and the model. So these things are going to be replaced. Right, how it is going to be replaced, I will show you practically. Then we have also discussed what is the difference between .NET framework and a .NET Core framework. Finally, I have also discussed, right, what do we mean by .NET Core and ASP.NET Core. People are getting confused. So that what we have also discussed, right? So that is what we have discussed in yesterday session, and I have already provided the recorded session as well as the class documentation on my right Telegram group, right? I hope you have gone through the documents, and also, right, if you have not attended the live session yesterday, you can also watch the session. So what we are going to discuss in today's session, right? We will continue our discussion. Guys, remember, these are a demo sessions for you guys, not for me. So whatever I have discussed yesterday, whatever I'm going to discuss in today's session, right? I'm not going to repeat, right? So that is the reason why I'm providing the recorded sessions. I'm providing the right class documentations, whatever I'm showing in front of you, right? So everything to you guys. So if you are missing the session, you have to watch the recordings, right? After watching the recorded session, right? If you are having any doubt, then you can ask the doubt in the next session. That is what right we are going to do. So in today's session, right? So in today's session, basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to discuss what is the .NET framework code execution process and what is the .NET Core framework execution code execution process. What are the fundamental changes they have done? Why they have done? Right? Then I'm going to discuss how the ASP.NET Core environment setup. I mean, from where you will get the Visual Studio, from where you will get the Visual Studio code, how to install them, right? How to install the .NET SDK, .NET Runtime, what version you need to install, how you can verify what version is installed on your application, how to write install ASP.NET Core, right, while you are installing, right, using Visual Studio. So all these things we are going to discuss. Finally, I will show you how to create your first ASP.NET Core web application, right? So that is what the agenda for today's session. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So anyone new join in today's session? Anyone new for the first time joining today's session? If anyone is here, right, for whom, right, today is the first session, right, once the session completed, if you guys have any question, right, related to the training program, the course fee, the course structure, the course syllabus, the course curriculum, what is the planning, what is the things we are going to cover, right, once the session end, you can ask me, right? For now, please enjoy the session, right, and whatever the topics I'm going to discuss, these are not that important, right, but yes, this is important if you are going to be a good .NET developer and if you are going to be architect, right? From the architect point of view, these things is very, very important. So let us try to understand. I hope you are going to enjoy also in today's session, right? So first of all, we will discuss the .NET Core execution process. So my screen is visible to all of you guys.
Yes.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So guys, one more request. So whenever I'm explaining, please mute yourself. Whenever you want to ask, you have to unmute, and once you ask the question, again you have to mute yourself. Second request, don't put anything on the chat window, which I have requested again and again. Anytime any question, ask me directly. Because while I'm explaining, my mind and my thinking should be on the screen, not on the chat. When one message is coming, then I have to go and check. So that is what is going to be disturb me. So please follow the same thing, right? So now let us first understand the .NET Core framework execution. See, before understanding the .NET Core framework execution process, let us first try to understand the .NET framework code execution process. What are the things they are doing? How the things are going to be done, right? Then I will show you the .NET Core framework execution process by comparing with the .NET framework core execution process, right? So if you look at this diagram, right? So guys, remember, whenever I'm going to explain the concept, I want to pictorially represent the concept rather than write all this thing, because picture will give you more and better explanation than the theory, right? So definitely theory will be there, but pictorially, practically, I'm going to explain, right? So in this case, as you know, Microsoft supports different programming language like C sharp, F sharp, VB, right? So different programming language you can use to write your application code. And each language, right? And each language is having its own compiler. If you are using C sharp as the programming language, the compiler is going to be CSSC.exe. If you are using F sharp as the compiler programming language, the compiler is going to be FSC.exe. If you are using VB as the programming language, then the compiler is going to be VBC.exe. So whenever you are going to develop any project, either it is a console application, either is a class library project, either is a right MVC project, either it is a web API project, right? Any type of project that you are going to develop in Microsoft using Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code, you have to write the code using any of the programming language. So suppose let's assume, right, forget about this F sharp and VB, because we are not going to write anything using F sharp and VB, but yes, these are also supported in Microsoft. So we are going to mainly focus on the C sharp, right? Because this is the programming language which is mostly used to 100%, right? I'm sure, right? 95% of time, whatever project you are going to develop, you are going to use C sharp. 5% is VB, because right, if you are working with any legacy and old project, they might be using VB, right? But here we are going to keep focus on the C sharp programming language. So whatever project we are going to develop behind the scene, we are going to use C sharp as the programming language. So using the C sharp programming language, whatever code we write, whatever code we write on the editor, those code are going to be called as source code. So whatever code we are going to write in the editor, those code is going to be called as the source code, which is very similar to our English-like programming language. Clear? Clear or
Yes.
not? Right.
Yes.
So that the code, whatever we are going to write,
Yes, sir.
while, while writing the code, we need to follow the appropriate syntax of that programming language. For example, if I'm writing the code using C sharp, then what is the syntax provided by C sharp language? That's what we need to follow. If I'm writing F sharp, then I have to follow F sharp syntax. If I'm writing VB, then I have to follow the VB syntax. Similar to our language. For example, if I'm communicating with English, then I have to follow the English syntax, rules and grammars. If I'm using Tamil, then I have to use Tamil syntax, right? Similarly, if I'm going to use Hindi, I have to follow the Hindi rules and the grammars, what is provided, right? So similar to the programming language. So whatever programming language we are going to use, we have to follow the syntax, the rules, and the regulations provided by the programming language. Suppose we have written the source code using any of the programming language. Let's assume we have written the code using the C sharp. Then what will happen? Guys, remember, there are the two steps, right, while executing the program. There are the two steps in .NET framework. One is the compilation, another one is execution. So while I'm compiling the program, right, the compiler will come into the picture, and while I'm running the program, the CLR will come into the picture, right? Suppose we have written the source code is going to be compiled. For compiling the source code, the respective language compiler will come into the picture. If I'm writing the source code, let's assume this is the source code, C# source code, then this is the source code is going to be compiled by the C# compiler. If I'm writing the source code using F#, then the F# source code is going to be compiled by the F# compiler, and same is in the case of a PP. So once the compiler compiles the source code, then what exactly it is going to generate? It is going to generate something called IL or MSIL code. This is something called as IL or MSIL code, or you can say intermediate language code or Microsoft intermediate language code. And guys, remember, this is one intermediate. Intermediate means what? It is neither looks like your English language syntax, nor it is looks like your machine code like 0 and 1. So it is something between your source code and your machine code. And this source code and the machine code, right, it is going to be packaged, right, either in the form of a DLL or in the form of a EXE. For example, if I'm developing in Windows Form application or a console application, the compiled code or right is going to be in the form of a .exe file. If I'm developing a class library project or a web application, the compiled code is going to be in the form of a .dll. So to prove this thing, right, what I can do is I can create one project, right? Okay. So let me use a .NET framework. So what I'm doing here, I'm using Visual Studio 2017, right? So this is one project I have written. So this is a console application. So once I compiled means once I build the project, right? Build the solution or build the project, right? For example, this is build. So once I build the project, right? You can see the compilation is going to be happening. If everything is fine, whatever the syntax rules and right, whatever the code we have written here, if it properly follows the syntax provided by C#, then the compilation will be successful. And once the compilation is successful, you can see the compiled code either in the form of a DLL and exe. As this is a console application, so it will package the compiled code in the form of a exe. So you can check. So this is the console app1.exe. So this is the console app1 of .exe, right? So this is the project. This is the file which is containing the exe. So here you can see properties. So this is one exe file. Now, so this exe file contains the compilation code of the program, right? Whatever we have written. Here, the compilation code, what you can do is you can open the command prompt, right? So here you can open the command prompt and then you can open this exe file. So what is that exe file? Console app.exe. Copy this path where your exe file is this. Then open the right this one, right? ILDASM intermediate language disassembler.exe and provide your path where your exe file is there. I mean the package. So once you click on this, you will get something, right? So this is nothing but your compiled code. So whatever code we have written, that will be converted into something like this. So this is going to be your compiled code. And this compiled code is not specific to your operating system. It is not specific to your processor. It is not specific to your hardware architecture of the machine. It is something, right, which is going to be understood by the CLR, not by the operating system. And this code is not specific to any operating system. Guys, remember, this is very, very important. So this code, this compiled code, what is going to be generated, it is not specific to any operating system. It is not specific to the processor and hardware architecture of the operating system. Clear or not?
Yes, sir.
Right? So up to first point is the source code we have written. Second step, compiler compile the source code, generate the MSIL code, and this MSIL code is in the form of an intermediate language format. And this is the format which is not specific to the operating system, and it is the intermediate means whatever the source code we have written and whatever the machine code in between this is the code. And this code, right, whatever we have generated here, this is going to be intermediate language code, and this intermediate language code can only be understood by the CLR, not by anyone else. So in the second step, right, what will happen? Now, once I build the project, right, then what I can do is I can start running the application. So once I start running the application, now you can see my application is running, right? My application is running. So you can also check the same thing that your application is running or not, right? In the, right, what I can say. So what is that application name we have provided?
Console app one.
Console app one, right? So you should see something related to console app one. Yeah. So you can see this console app one, currently it is running in the debugging mode. So this is application is running. So once the application start running, right, then what will happen? So whatever the source code we have written, right, that is, you can see this is the source code which is already in there in the exe format. So this source code is going to be intercepted by the CLR. The CLR will take the responsibility of taking the source code. Within the CLR, there is something called the just-in-time compiler. So this is a compiler is for converting the source code into intermediate language code. This just-in-time compiler, which is a part of CLR, is responsible for taking this source code and generating the native machine code. And this time, right, while converting this MSIL code to machine code, the CLR will check, right, what is the operating system, what is the processor, what is the hardware architecture, and what is the best way to generate the machine code so that the underlying operating system can effectively execute the code. So in this case, so CLR means just-in-time compiler is the it is a part of your CLR, but CLR is going to take the responsibility for converting this MSIL code, right? Whatever code we have written here, that code is going to be converted into machine code. While converting the machine code, this just-in-time compiler will check what is the operating system on which this CLR is running. Yesterday, if you look at the diagram, right? We have discussed this thing, right? So we have discussed. So this .NET Core or .NET Framework, right? This is the runtime environment. This runtime environment is nothing but you can say CLR, here core CLR. This CLR and core CLR is running on top of the operating system. So they know what is the operating system. So based on the operating system, right? They are going to generate the machine code. So machine code while generating, they will think what is the processor, whether it is a single core processor, multi-core processor, right? How many cores are available, right? What is the hardware architecture, right? By considering all these things into consideration, they are going to generate the machine code. And once they generate the machine code, this machine code can effectively going to be executed by the underlying operating system. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Anyone have any question how the .NET framework application, right, execution takes place?
Hello. Hello.
Guys, if
Hello.
one by one. Guys, whenever you are asking, please. Okay, guys, please ask me one by one. Sana, please tell me what is your query? Okay, that means this concept is clear to everyone, right? I'm not getting any question. Means the
Sir, the one
execution.
which you have shown in that command prompt, right? Developer command prompt, the ildsm.exe. So
Hmm.
this is the MSIL portion, right?
So how many guys are on mute? So Sagar, very right, very noisy coming from your background, right?
Yes,
So
sir. Actually, I'm traveling now. That's the reason. Should I put
so
it
the
on a chat?
answer is not going to be a determinant, right? So please, if you want to ask any question, you have to be in a very good position so that others will not be disturbed, right? So please make sure, right, to be in a position where there should not be any background noise. So this it is not looks good. So right, anyone having any more question, guys? Clear, guys?
Sir, does this CLR command execute the programming language
So
systematically,
you
or does it goes parallel?
So you don't know what is CLR?
No, sir.
So you don't know what is CLR, right? So basically, do you have any idea what is C sharp?
Yeah. This is a programming language, I know. C sharp.
See, programming language means, right? So I am assuming, right, you know what is compiler, what is CLR, right? So these things are very common, right? If you don't know this thing, means your basics is not clear. So guys, tell me, what do you mean by CLR?
Common language runtime, right? It is also called
Yes,
as heart of dotted framework.
right. So this is the runtime environment, right? Where your application code is going to be run. So without CLR, right, how you can run your application code? So and this is right our ASP.NET Core session, right? And again I'm telling, right? So these things are very right common, and right and I'm assuming you guys know this thing, right? So you just tell me, right? You just tell me which code is going to be executed by the operating system, 01 or intermediate language code or our source code. What the operating system can understand?
Machine
Machine
code.
language, of course.
MSIL,
Machine code,
Native code.
right?
MSIL,
It's style code, right? And this C# programming language is a platform dependent or independent language.
independent, right?
Independent.
So how it is independent?
We can run
Because
on
of
different
what it is
platforms, Linux, um,
independent, right?
Windows, Mac.
That is fine. That is fine. My question is, yes, it is independent, but how? What makes it as an independent language?
In the code which we
Because
have
it's
written,
converted in MSIL,
Because
na,
it
sir.
converts to machine language code.
Right? Because there is a
which
two-step process.
Intermediate.
the code which
Compilation,
we have written
second one
in our
is execution,
system, the
right?
code which we
First
have
one is
written in our system,
guys, why five guys are on mute at a time? So if anyone want to ask, right, one by one. So if you are not telling anything, mute yourself, right? Let me explain, right? So in this case, right, uh, whenever we are writing the code, we are generating something called the MSIL code. This MSIL code, it is not specific to the operating system. That is what I have already shown to you. So this MSIL code, right, I can generate in one machine. I can take the DLL to a different machine, and inside that different machine, I can execute this code. Getting my point? And this is going to be what? Why? Because on which machine I am going to execute this MSIL code, that machine should have the specific CLR. Suppose I am using here, right, Windows 7. The Windows 7 specific CLR must be installed there. If I'm using Windows 10, the Windows 10 specific CLR must be there, right? And that CLR will take the responsibility for taking this MSIL code and generating the machine code. So the CLR is responsible for converting the MSIL code into native code. And when we install the .NET framework, automatically the CLR is also going to be installed. I will show you how to install .NET SDK. And if you don't want to SDK, right, how you cannot only install the runtime, everything is going to be discussed, right? So this is the right, what I can say, environment where our application code is going to be run. So here, by writing the C# code, we generate the MSIL code. But to run this MSIL code, we need CLR. CLR is the environment or platform where our .NET code is going to be run. Why? Because the CLR will take the responsibility for converting this MSIL code into native code. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Sagar, whatever you are understanding, that is correct, right? So this is how the .NET Core program execution takes place, right? And guys, remember,
Sir,
right? Yes,
sir, as one second. Sir, as we can see the MSIL code in the form of .dll or exe, can we also see native code where it plays and
just tell me when the native code is going to be generated.
I think it
When
will
we
be
run
in
the application.
Okay.
So when we
Yes, sir.
build the application, the MSIL file is there, but there is no specific file, right, where we can see the native code. It is based on the operating system at runtime, right? It is going to be generated. And whenever it is generating something,
Okay.
and we cannot save that thing or we cannot see that thing,
Okay. Got it.
right? So now, right, and guys, remember to develop any .NET framework project, right, we are provided with something called BCL and something called FCL. So can anybody tell me what exactly BCL and FCL are? So when we install .NET framework, so this BCL and FCL are also automatically installed into our application. So these classes, right? So these BCL and FCL, they provide a set of built-in classes and functions, right? That what we can use to develop .NET framework application. So a set of predefined classes and functions provided by BCL, another set of classes and functions provided by FCL, which we can use to develop, right, our project. So FCL basically include right classes like for UI, data access, networking, file system, right? For if you are working with the data access, if you are working with the networking, if you are working with the file system, right? For those right functionality, whatever classes are there, that is going to be provided by FCL. BCL, this in BCL, it is also subset of FCL, and it provides core for features like collection, right? List, dictionary, right, system class, right, so input output basic data types, right, so these are going to be provided by BCL. So this FCL and BCL, they are part of our .NET framework, and they provide the fundamental classes functions which we need to use, right, in order to develop the .NET framework application. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Clear,
Yes,
guys?
sir.
Now,
Yes, sir.
now let us try to understand the .NET Core execution process. Guys, remember the process of steps, right? How the .NET Framework application is executing. The same steps and the same process is also going to be followed by the .NET Core. Now, but what changes they have made? They have made some changes to the components. The core components, whatever they are using with .NET framework, is changed in the .NET Core. Let us try to understand. See the diagram you can see. It is very similar to this diagram. So you have to write this source code, compile the source code. MSIL code is going to be generated. That is going to be executed by the CLR. CLR will generate the machine code, and that machine code is going to be executed by the operating system, right? The same steps is also followed in .NET Core. This is the source code. Multiple programming language also supported by .NET Core. You can write using any of your programming language. That is going to be compiled. Once the compiler compile the code, MSIL code is going to be generated. That MSIL code is going to be executed by the CLR. CLR will execute the native code, and the native code is going to be understood by the operating system. But what is the difference? The difference is the core components they have changed. Earlier, whatever compiler they are using, now they have changed the compiler. Earlier, whatever CLR they are using, they have changed the CLR, right? And earlier, whatever the framework class library and a base class library they are providing, they also renamed those things. They have also changed those things right now. Earlier, for C# programming language, the compiler is CS, right? You can see what is the compiler CAC.exe. For F#, FAC.exe. For VB, they are using VBC.exe, right? But for now, they are using the advanced Roslyn compiler. For C#, the compiler is Roslyn. For VB, the compiler is Roslyn. For F#, this is the compiler F# 4.1. That means they have changed the compiler. The compiler, what you are using for C# in a .NET framework is going to be different in a .NET Core. Similarly, if you come to this right runtime environment, earlier we are using CLR, what with the .NET Core, it is Core CLR. Earlier, we are using is just-in-time compiler, but now it is RiveJIT compiler. Earlier, we are using BCL and FCL, but now, right, which is going to provide the base classes, right, using which we can develop the application. But now they are providing something called core effects, right? So the point that you need to remember, right? Earlier, what we have, right, the compiler for C#, the compiler is CASP.exe, right? But now they are using something called Roslyn. Clear, guys? Now, earlier we are having something called a
Yes.
CLR. Now, it is going to be core CLR. This is the compiler. Earlier, we are having something called BCL, or you can say FCL, for developing the right project, but now it is renamed with a core FX. Clear, guys? Clear or not?
Sir, can you explain more about Roslyn?
So, what is Roslyn? So, this is a compiler. What I explanation you need about Roslyn?
Sir, can we say that this Roslyn compiler is taking parallel processing and the previous ones they are taking the sequential?
No, that is not the job of a compiler. Parallel processing, sequential processing, this is not. The compiler means it is going to compile the program step by step. What is the difference between compiler and the interpreter? Whatever you will learn, right, in your academic STEM steps. So it is going to compile the program one by one, step by step. If it is facing any issue, will not stop. It will compile the whole project, and then it is going to give you the list of error. That is the same fundamental thing. Whatever you learn between compiler and interpreter is going to be same. But the question that should comes to your mind is, sir, why they have made such changes? Earlier, we are using CSSC.exe as the compiler. We are using CLR as the runtime environment. And BCL and HCL as the right base class libraries and libraries which we are using to develop the application. Then why does they made the changes? Why they are providing original compiler, core CLR and core FX? Because why you are learning ASP.NET Core? The answer is why ASP.NET Core? Why ASP.NET? Because of cross-platform open source.
Open source and
Right?
cloud open.
So this compiler, what we used earlier,
From
this is specific to Windows operating system. This is CLR, it is specific to Windows operating system. This BCL and HCL, they are specific to Windows operating system. But now, do you think that whatever .NET Core application we are developing, it is specific to Windows? No. It is cross-platform. We can develop using Mac operating system, Linux operating system, right? Different operating system. The CLR, what they have provided earlier, this is specific to Windows. But now we need to create one project which should be executed, which should run the application in a Linux operating system, which should run the application in a Mac operating system. Clear? That means as we are developing as they are developing a completely new framework, which is going to be cross-platform and open source. The earlier library CLR right compiler, what they have provided, that is not a cross-platform and open source, but to make the things right to be available as cross-platform and make them as open source means what? Now earlier, whatever code they have written for this compiler CLR, you will not see. In the coming days, I will show you how you can see whatever code they have written for Roslyn compiler, whatever code they have written for core CL. And these things, practically, I'm going to show you whatever the class libraries they are providing, whatever code they have written as part of the function, as part of the class, right? I can show you. As we progress, I'm going to show you. And why it is possible? Because they are making most of the part are, right, open source. Because of these two reasons, they have made a fundamental changes to the compiler, to the runtime environment, and to the class libraries. Clear or not?
Sir, after compiling in .NET Framework, they are generating the exe. But in .NET Core, after compilation, what will be generated?
See, there is no changes. What I'm saying, only the components are changed. In .NET Core also, you will see DLL and exe.
Okay.
Right? So what they have changed? They have changed the component. Component means whatever compiler, whatever CLR, and whatever class libraries they are provided earlier. Those they have made changes. Why? Because they have to change. Otherwise, how it can be cross-platform and open source?
But then, sir, when they generate the exe or DLL, and I want to run that application in the Mac, so that core CLR we need to install on the Mac system.
See, that
To run
core
this.
CLR, what you need to install on Mac, that is going to take the DLL and EX and will run the application code.
Okay, on Mac system. Correct. Got it.
And that core CLR, that is specific to Mac, right?
Mac.
They are providing different version of the CLR. CLR of Windows is different than CLR of Mac. CLR of Mac is different than the CLR of Linux.
Every operating system has a different CLR, core CLR.
Yes, because they are designed that CLR in such way that they should consider what is the operating system, what is the hardware architecture, what is the processor, right? Based on that operating system, the code is going to be generated. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Right?
So,
Is
sir,
that clear?
if we are generating a class library in Windows and taking that as a DLL and consuming it into a Mac project, like in the Mac operating system, will that work, right?
Yes, 100% will work because, right? See, what CLR is taking, CLR is considering only the DLL and EXE. Whether you execute those, see, guys, you just remember, whenever I'm compiling the source code, so whatever MSIL code is generated, is this specific to any operating system?
No,
No.
If it is not
no.
specific to any operating system, you can take this DLL or EXE, right? You can generate this DLL and EXE in any of the operating system. Take this DLL and EXE and run this DLL and EXE, right? In any other operating system, and it will work. But the main thing that what you need to remember, wherever you are going to run this code, that operating system should have the specific CLR. I mean core CLR. If I'm taking this one into Mac operating system, if the Mac operating system doesn't have the core CLR, then this code is not going to be run. Clear?
Yes, sir. I have one more question.
I have one doubt.
So,
Okay.
Yes, please.
uh, so when you're saying that when the .NET Core has changed the compiler of Roslyn and Core CLR, so they have achieved the cross-platform operating system. But I have read like .NET Core is also lightweight and modular. So this
But
compiler has
see,
also
see,
enhanced the performance.
see, lightweight and modular and compiler both are two different things. So why I'm saying lightweight and modular? Because whenever you develop an application, for example, I developed one application, you can see, right, many very minimal, right? So this is a console application, what I developed using, right, what I can say, .NET framework, right? Now, I'm going to develop one application using, right, same console application using .NET Core. So let me go ahead and develop a console application using .NET Core. Right. So in this case, you can see, right, how many packages they have provided. And here in this console application, how many packages are there? If I'm
Yeah,
not
there are
using it,
very
if I'm not using a data entity framework core and many other things, why I'm going to use this package? But in this case, in .NET Core, it is not going to give you anything. Whatever you require, you have to get it from the NuGet package. And second thing, right? And they have also split the things in such a way that for an entity framework core, if you are going to use entity framework core, in an entity framework core, they are also having different packages. You want to use only data provider, install this package. Along with the data provider, you want to generate and apply the migration, use this package. You don't need migration, don't install that package. But in entity framework, if I'm going to use in ASP.NET framework, not only that entity framework, but also all the related dependency package, right, are also going to be installed, even though they are not used. So this is the modular approach. Whatever you require, those things are going to be provided by framework, and unnecessary thing they are not going to provide. Anything you need, you have to install it from NuGet. That is the reason why ASP.NET Core is lightweight. And yes, of course, compiler is also, they have made the changes to the compiler. The compiler is also going to, right, if I'm going to compare the .NET Framework compiler with Roslyn. This is the advanced version. This Roslyn compiler is advanced version, so it is going to compile the code in more faster, right, than the right .NET Framework compiler. Because see, whenever they are developing something new, definitely they are going to give you better and better. Clear?
Got it.
Next question, please, guys.
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to understand, like right now, this MSIL code, whatever is generating, it is like independent of operating system.
Yes.
So now the thing is, like if in the old version, whatever is also generating, that is independent of operating system, correct?
But the difference is that, right, whatever operating system you are using. For example, in old version, we can have operating system Windows, but a different version of operating system, na? We can use Windows 7, Windows 10, Windows 11, right? Different version are there. If I'm generating in Windows 10, I can take that and I can run on Windows 7. But here, the cross-platform compatibility means what? Not only you can execute the code in Windows 7, 10, and 11, but also you can run on Linux, you can run on Mac. That right cross-platform flexibility they are providing with the .NET Core.
That cross-platform flexibility is because of this core CLR.
Yes, because of this core CLR. Because this core CLR, it is specific to the operating system. So if you are installing, right, I will show you, right, how it is specific to, right, operating system, right. In the next steps, I am going to discuss, right, how to download the .NET SDK and all these things. So at that time, I am going to discuss this thing.
So what I right now, so takeaway is like this core CLR changes is the key factor, but this Roslyn whatever that compiler, it is kind of enhancement. Is that correct understanding?
Yes, yep. Right. No. See, that is one thing. You can consider in that manner, right? Because right, one thing is cross-platform. Second thing, as I have mentioned here, another thing is open source. So, and that is the reason why they are also making this Roslyn as open source. You can also see the source code.
Okay,
Clear?
thanks. Yeah.
So two things they are considering, right? One is open source, another one is cross-platform. So this course CLR will make our application right cross-platform. Even it is making cross-platform. This is also open source. This is also open source, and they are making enhancement, right? Whatever the feature compiler we are using, that is enhanced with the Roslyn. Clear, guys? Clear? Or anyone having any
Sir,
question?
sir, I also have same doubt like this. You told me that this C# converted in MSIL and earlier version also same.
Yes.
So you told me that .dll, .exe we can use in any operating system. So
So means
this
what? So any, see, you are getting confused. So any means what? In .NET framework, only operating system is Windows. But that Windows operating system have a different version. Windows 7,
okay,
Windows 10, Windows 11. In this case, you cannot
right?
run the application on a Linux and a Mac.
Okay,
But
okay,
but in different kind of operating system, and each operating system architecture is different, right? Don't think that Windows 7 architecture is similar to Windows 10, Windows XP, Windows Vista, Windows 11, right? Every operating system architecture is different, and this .NET framework, it is completely window based product. Here you cannot think about other operating system. Here it is cross platform. Cross-platform means you can have multiple operating system. You can use Windows different version no matter, Linux different version no matter, and Mac operating system different version no matter.
okay,
Clear?
okay. Sir. So cross platform is due to this CR here only, right?
Core CLR.
Yes, sir, core CLR.
So you have to remember, CLR
Okay.
means it will be considered as a .NET framework runtime environment. Core CLR means it is the
Yes.
core application runtime environment. So that is the reason
Okay.
why I have provided this information, because you will get confused. Compiler means in earlier the compiler is different, but with .NET Core the compiler is going to be different,
Yes.
right? So This is the .NET framework, right? Code execution process. Next, what I'm going to discuss, right? The environment setup. Clear, guys? I will share this document, right? You will understand, right? The explanation theoretically, right? So what we are going to do is, right? I'm going to show you how you can make your, yes.
Actually, like whatever the diagram you are showing, right? Initially, can you scroll up a little bit, please? In the diagram, say like initially, like it will be taking the source code for us, right? The languages. Then it will be converting our source code to IL code. If I do remember, just correct me if I'm wrong. Now that MSIL code will be taken by CLR. Now finally CLR will be having different components such as like JIT,
Yes.
event handler, right?
Right.
So after that, like CLR will be converting our .msil code to exe code. But
So
what
this
I
is a
can
dot,
see in the
see
diagram,
guys, remember, this is not .msil code. This is dot .dll or .exe.
but
The
these
file
are
extension,
okay. But these are
is going to be DLL and exe.
okay. But like native code is different, exe code is different, right? Finally, whatever the output we will be getting, it will be in the form of .exe, right?
No,
So I do have a
no,
dot like in place of
no,
native
no.
code.
How you are saying that output is going to be in the form of a .exe? Did I mention anything that the output is going to be .exe? So .exe you are only generating when you are compiling the application code.
Okay.
So while you are running the application code, the CLR will take this DLL and exe. They will generate the native machine code. This machine code is going to be executed on the operating system, and the operating system is going to display the output.
Fine,
And
fine.
this native code you cannot see or you cannot write save. This
Fine.
is going to be generated at runtime on the fly.
Sir, it is same diagram. It will work for the web application as well. Na? If we publish the when we publish the code,
This
it will
is,
generate the DLL.
here what we need to understand. Here we are only thinking the right architecture point of view. So did I mention anywhere whether it is a console application, web application, or anything? What I'm saying, if it is a console application or Windows the form application, the file is going to be .exe. If it is a web application or you can say a class library project, then it is going to be a .dll. So this diagram is for every kind of a .NET application. That is the reason why I have mentioned here DLL or exe. For different kind of for console and right Windows form, the extension, the file it is going to generate is exe. For web application, class library project, it is going to be DLL. So it is for all type of a .NET application. Clear?
Okay.
Sir, just one question. For example, there was some code or an application, console application, which was written in our earlier .NET framework, and so that would be a simple source code. Now, if we bring that into our new framework and if we are trying to execute with our new compiler, it will still work, right?
So how it is going to work?
That is only a
No.
source code,
So
right?
you just need to understand, right? You are completely in different together. So if you are developing this application, for developing this application, what packages you are using?
The for existing earlier part, BCL and FCL are the we were
Yes,
using, right?
BCL and FCL are for .NET framework application. If you are going to execute something on .NET Core, the package is going to be changed. Na? So this is not going
No,
to work.
the existing
So what,
.exe or .dll we are getting because of the
whatever,
compiler which we are using,
whatever,
right?
yes, compiler, what we are using, what framework we are using to develop the application. And here again and again, I'm saying, if you are using this thing, right, this compiler, this CLR, and this base class libraries, it is Windows-based product. How you can take this MSIL and DX and execute on right Linux and other operating system using Core CLR. For Core CLR, the compiler should be compatible. So
No,
for
no,
Core
I was
CLR,
not
the
asking
base
about
class
the
library is
CLR,
what
the compiler itself, only by taking the source code of some earlier. But then, as you mentioned, the framework could
but
be,
you have to remember
yeah.
what the
Hmm.
source code you are writing. For
Yes,
writing the
the
source
base
code,
class
what packages
libraries.
you are using?
Got it. Yeah,
And
makes
if
sense.
those packages are not compatible with .NET Core, how it can be executed by the CLR or Core
Hmm.
CLR? So these
Okay.
packages are also important, no? So
Yes,
these
yes.
packages, whatever they are providing, and the core effects, what packages is .NET Core providing, both are different.
Compatibility need to be checked. Yes, yes, I got it. Sure. Thank you.
Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
So next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make your environment setup ready. So basically, what I'm going to do is, right, on my machine, I'm using Windows 11, right, but you can use Windows 10, Windows 11 as per your right convenient. If you do not have Windows, you can still use Mac and a Linux operating system, right? So for this right training program, if you have Windows 10 and 11, that is fine. Otherwise, you can go with a Mac and a Linux operating system. Coming to the ID, right, if you are working with the Windows operating system, right, then for that Windows operating system, we can go with Visual Studio, right, 2022. If you are working with the Macs and the Linux operating system, right, then you have to go with the Visual Studio Code, because, right, on Mac and Linux, Visual Studio, right, will not work. For them, you have to use Visual Studio Code. So the point that you need to remember, right, on Windows, you can use Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code. Both are going to be work. But on Mac, Visual Studio will not work. For Mac and Linux, Visual Studio will not work. For Mac and Linux, you have to use Visual Studio Code. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Right.
But there
So
is no difference between Visual Studio Code and Visual Studio, right? It's just
there
an
is a huge
uh,
difference. A huge difference. Don't say that there is no difference. There is a huge difference. So what flexibility Visual Studio is providing, that what you will not find with Visual Studio Code, right? You will not find. Yes,
Sir,
for development purpose you
Visual
can write.
Studio Code is free for Mac operating system.
Not for Mac, Linux and Windows. That is what I'm saying. Na? For Windows,
Sir,
you can
sir,
Visual Studio. For Mac and
Visual
Linux,
Studio Code is free for Mac operating system. Yeah, paid.
Visual Studio Code is completely free. You do not need to pay anything for Visual Studio Code. Doesn't matter whether you are using Windows, Linux, and Mac. Everywhere you can use Visual Studio Code. But Visual
Okay, sir.
Studio it is specific to Windows operating system only. You cannot use Visual Studio on Mac and Linux. So mostly, if you are developing .NET application in Windows, you can go with Visual Studio. If you are developing application in Mac and Linux, you don't have that flexibility to use Visual Studio. You have only one option, that is not one option, other options are there, but mostly people are using Visual Studio Code. Clear?
Sir, so Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio 2022, both have same functionality?
No, both are different. Na? That is what I'm saying. Both are different. There is a huge
Then,
difference
sir,
between.
Linux, then Mac OS user will, they don't have a similar kind of functionality like
What I'm
for
saying,
Windows.
there is a huge difference. But for that, to achieve those functionality, you need to install many extensions within your Visual Studio Code. You cannot achieve
Okay.
what we are providing. Why? Because in Visual Studio, right, there are three different versions. For one version, that is completely free. For two other versions, you have to pay for them. So if you are paying for something, definitely you will get some advanced feature or not. But in this case, this is completely free. Free means whatever operations are required, minimum operation are required for developing, running, building, publishing, you will get. But the advanced concept, right, what they are providing as for their paid version, those things you will not find here, right? But still, you can develop the application what is required. I will show you, right, what are the things they have made available, what is this, right? Practical, I'm going to show you. Then you have to use .NET SDK. Why I'm saying .NET SDK? Because this is the development environment kit. Once I install the .NET SDK, the compiler, the CLR, right? Sorry, this is for .NET Core. Sorry, this is for .NET Framework. So once I install the .NET SDK, these three things are going to be installed. So what is the what I can say, the compiler, the runtime environment, and the class library. So these three things are going to get installed if you are installing .NET SDK. And this is what we need in our development environment. And in the production environment, we don't need this compiler and core effects, because in the production environment, we have already compiled our code. This compiled code we are providing to the server. On the server, we need only CLR. The CLR we need to install separately. That is also possible. So the point that you need to remember, if you install .NET SDK, right, everything is going to be installed, but separately you can only install the CLR if you require, right? That is what also possible. So, and second thing is that as we are going to develop, right, .NET Core application, please make sure ASP.NET Core is installed on your installed, right? Whenever you are installing Visual Studio, please make sure this ASP.NET Core workload is installed. How to install? I will show you, right? So database management system, right? You can use any database as per your choice. You can use Microsoft SQL Server, MySQL, PostgreSQL, Oracle, right? Any database as per your choice. So mostly I'm going with the Microsoft SQL Server because it is compatible with .NET. And at some point of time, I'm going to show you how you can connect with the MySQL. And I will give you one session where I'm going to discuss how to work with NoSQL database like MongoDB. But most of the time, I'm going to use Microsoft SQL Server. I will take one session to show you how to communicate with MySQL as well as write MongoDB. But the steps, the process, how we are working with one database is going to be common for all the databases. And to
Sir,
work with the data SQL Server, we need to install something called SQL Server Management Studio.
sir, I have one question.
Yes, let me complete this, then I will take the questions, right?
Sure.
And finally, whenever I'm going to develop, right, what I can say, web services, right? For testing the web services, we can those web services are going to be consumed by different types of a client application. But for here, for testing the web services, I'm going to use some kind of API client tool, something called the Postman and Fiddler. Obviously, the Swagger, or you can say the Open API, which is also provided by ASP.NET Core Framework, which you can also use. So these are the three different approaches. All right, I'm going to show you test the web services. This is the tool which we can use to communicate with the SQL Server database. Mostly we are going to use SQL Server. We need to install this ASP.NET Core along with the .NET SDK. And on my machine, I have Windows operating system. So I'm going with Visual Studio 2022. Yes, anyone having any question, they can ask.
Yes, I have doubt. Actually, I do not have Visual Studio 2022, so I have Visual Studio Code in my machine or device. So can
What
I have the
operating system you have? What operating system you have?
Windows, sir, Windows?
So why not you install Visual Studio 2020?
Actually, it is my RAM is so small, so it is somewhat stuck in my machine.
Okay, so
So
right, you should install, right? Because doesn't matter whether you use Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code, your machine should have a right enough RAM. Because I'm going to install, right? Because at the same time I'm going to develop 4 different projects, databases, right? Different client tools, right? Different extensions, right? Everything I'm going to use, right, while I'm explaining the application. Please ensure to improve your RAM size and right. Please try to install some SSD if possible. Increase at least 8 GB RAM is required.
okay, sir.
Please make sure.
And in Visual
So
Studio
I
Code, can we connect with the database, right? Same as Visual Studio.
Whatever
Uh,
I'm saying, whatever I'm doing with Visual Studio, same thing you can also do with Visual Studio Code. No issue.
okay, thanks.
Yes,
When we
please.
install Visual Studio 2022, that time we need to install .NET SDK, and along with
No,
that SDK
no.
we
I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you right that don't worry how to install, where to install, when to install separately. All these things I'm going to show you practically now. So these are the things, right, that what we need to install. Now what I'm going to do show you how to download and install Visual Studio on our application, right? So basically, right, Visual Studio, it is the development environment, right, what I can say, using which we can develop. So how to download and install? First of all, you need to visit the Microsoft website. You have to choose the edition, right? There are free edition is there and paid version of the edition is there. You need to download the installer, then you need to run the installer, select the workloads and complete the installation. Guys, remember Visual Studio 2022 is the latest version. Visual Studio 2022 is the latest version. And when I'm installing Visual Studio 2022, automatically the latest SDK is also going to be installed. If not installed, you can also install them separately. Let us try to proceed and see both of the options, how it is going to be installed. First of all, this is the official website, right? What you need to go, where you need to download the Visual Studio. You can see this is Visual Studio 22. So whenever I visit the website, it is showing that Visual Studio 2022. This is the latest version. And here you can see this is the Visual Studio code, right? Here you can see the most comprehensive IDE for .NET and C++ developer on Windows operating system for building different kind of application. That means Visual Studio 2022 or whatever this Visual Studio ID, it is specific for Windows operating system. And if you are developing application on Windows, Mac and Linux, right? For Windows, Mac and Linux, you can also use Visual Studio Code. So this Visual Studio Code, it is for all the different types of operating system. You can use it on Windows, Mac and Linux, right? Similarly, one guy has asked me, right? So he's installing Visual Studio Code on Windows. That is possible. Mostly Visual Studio Code is for Mac and Linux operating system, and Visual Studio is for Windows operating system. If you are having Windows operating system, it is recommended to use Visual Studio. Clear? And now if you look at the Visual Studio, there are three different versions. One is community, one is professional, and one is enterprise. Let us try to understand what is the difference between these three versions, right? So here you can see this is the three versions. So the community edition, it is for the target individual developers, right? As an individual developer, you can use community edition. As a student, you can use. If you want to contribute something as open source, you can do it. And for small team, right, in a company, if there is a small team, right, a maximum five or minimum, right, minimum number of people are there, less than five, you can go with this one. Price, this is completely free. Features, minimum basic things, right? Basic things which are required for developing the application, right? Such as supporting different kind of projects, supporting the right development environment for running the application, debugging the application, version control, integration, referring to code to definition, right? All these things are going to be supported by this thing. That means this community edition, this is completely free, and most of the things what is required as a developer while developing the application is going to be provided by community edition. And this community edition, it can also be used for commercial application development in organization with no more than 5 users. If you are working for a company, if that company is having more than 5 users, right? More than 5 machines where you are installing Visual Studio, this is not for them. Maximum 5 users they can use. And the second thing is that, right? If your company having more than 250, or if you are running, right, generating 1 million, right, annual revenue, then you cannot use open source, right? You cannot use, and you can only use this medicine, right, for the open source project. Means academic. Suppose you are doing some kind of a research, right? Suppose you are providing some kind of a training. Suppose you are developing some kind of open source project, right? Even for them you can use, right? But mainly, right, the target audience is developer, student, and open source contributor, and very small team with the right maximum 5 members. The Visual Studio Professional Edition, you can see this is the professional edition, right? The target audience is the professional developer and the small to medium sized team. So this required a paid subscription, right? You can see, right, it is a free trial is there, but after 90 days of a free trial, you need to pay. And similarly, here also it is 90 days of a free trial. After the free trial, you have to pay for the service, right? What they are providing. So this includes, so whatever features provided by Community Edition, all the features are going to be included inside this professional edition. Plus, it supports richer debugging features, right? It provides Microsoft development support. It provides red code links, right? Means many other things, right? It is also going to provide, right, which you cannot find in, right, what I can say, community edition. But to be saying frankly, right, frankly saying, so these additional features, what they are providing, very rarely as a developer we are using in our application, right? So nobody is using, but yes, they are providing, but we are not using. That is one thing that what you need to remember. And guys, remember, there is no restriction on the size of the number of organization, right? It doesn't matter how many number of users in your organization, you can go with the professional edition. And this is the enterprise edition. Is its cost is more than, right? Its cost is more than the professional edition. and it require a more expensive, that means it required a more expensive subscription compared to the professional, and it provides many interesting feature. I'm not sure whether you guys know or not. Intellect test, live unit testing, text impact analysis, code map, performance profiling tool, DevOps, and lifecycle management, right? So all these things are provided, right, by this enterprise edition. If you know this thing, that is well and fine. If you don't know, please do some R&D on these things, right? If you know what we mean by this concept, right, that is well and fine. If you don't know, if you have time, please do some research, right? What do you mean by live unit testing? What do you mean by code map? What do you mean by performance profiling tools, right? So these things, right, are interesting things, and please try to observe, right? So what version I'm going to choose? I'm going to choose the community edition, which is completely free. So once you click on this, right, it is going to download the exe file. So this Visual Studio setup.exe means it is the installer. So once you download, double click on this to start the installation. Once you double click, it is going to first install the Visual Studio installer, right? So this Visual Studio installer is going to install the Visual Studio for our application. So on your single machine, right, on your single machine, you can have multiple version of Visual Studio. For example, now if you look at my machine, right, I'm having different version: Visual Studio 2017, Visual Studio 2019, Visual Studio 2022. So even though I'm having three different versions of Visual Studio, I'm having only a single Visual Studio installer, right? Single Visual Studio installer, which is going to manage all the different versions of a Visual Studio. So if this is not installed, it is going to install fast. If it is installed, that is fine. So once you install the Visual Studio, right, once you click on open and install this, so it is going to install the Visual Studio. Once the Visual Studio is installed, right, installer is installed, right, then, right, okay, let me open this one. So let me open this Visual Studio installer, right? So you can see the Visual Studio installer, it is something like this. And here you can see there are the different versions of a Visual Studio are there. So anytime, right, you can see it is showing to update, right? What is the current version 15.9.55 and what is the updated 15.9.67. That means it is saying please update the Visual Studio 2017, 2019, 2022. So what version is installed on my machine? 7.10.3. What is the current updated version? 7.11.5. So it is asking please update this one, right? Once you click on this, it will update the Visual Studio community edition to the latest version, right? Now, if you click on this modify button, right, then you will see this screen. And whenever you are installing Visual Studio, by default, this screen is also going to come. So here you have to remember two things, right? So this is not, this workload is nothing but what are the different types of application you want to develop. That workload you need to select. Now here we are going to develop the web application. So what is important? You have to select this ASP.NET and a web development checkbox. So once you check this checkbox, right, then what will happen? It is going to provide you the support for developing web applications. It might be your ASP.NET Core MVC, ASP.NET Core Web API, Razor Pages, right? All the different kind of web application supports is going to be provided by Visual Studio. Similarly, if you want to develop any console application, Windows Form application, desktop application, right, then you have to select this .NET desktop development checkbox. So this checkbox you have to select if you want to develop right web application as well as a .NET console application. So once you select this two checkbox, right, then you have to, right, currently the install button is not showing because we have already installed. Let me select another one. So once I select another one, this modify button is coming. But for you, if you are installing for the first time, here instead of a modify button, it is going to show you the install button, right? And the second thing that what you need to remember, right? You can see the .NET SDK should be selected. So .NET SDK, it must be selected, right? So this .NET SDK by default, right, it is going to be in selected mode. If it is not in selected mode, you can check this one and you can modify this one. So these are the two things, right, that what you need to install. One is ASP.NET web development, another one is .NET desktop development. Once you select these two things, click on the install button, which is going to install, right, the Visual Studio things, right, for you. And once you install, all right, when you, all right, it will ask you to sign in. You can sign in using your Microsoft account if you have. Otherwise, you can skip the signing. Later, you can create the Microsoft account and you can sign in. So once you sign in, right, then what it will happen, if you are opening for the first time, it will ask you to choose your theme, right? Whatever theme you like. Many developers are liking the dark theme. Many are like blue theme. So I generally prefer this blue theme. So whatever theme you like, that theme you need to select and you can start the Visual Studio. Once you start the Visual Studio, this page is going to be open. Clear? And please make select this .NET 8 runtime and this .NET SDK are selected. And once you install everything, right, now, if you want to check, right, whether a Visual Studio is installed correctly or not, right, then for that purpose, right, what you can write, you can open the command prompt and you can select, right, what version of Visual Studio are installed, whether it is installed successfully or not, right? So you can write .NET. Okay, so if you don't know what command you need to write, just type .NET. So once you type .NET, then it is going to give you the options. So here .NET is nothing but your driver command, and these options are nothing but your helper command. So you know, if you want to write anything, right, any boss or something, right, driver is mandatory. Along with the driver, helper is there, right, within the bot to manage the things inside the boss. Similarly, for .NET, right, the driver command is .NET. Along with that .NET, you can write any other command. For example, I'm going to see what are the all .NET SDKs are installed. So type .NET, then what you need to do, copy this thing. So here you can see who is on mute. Nagar, please unmute yourself. Your background noise is very heavy. So now you can see it's showing me that there are a different version of SDKs are installed on your machine. .NET 8.0.3. So please make sure this .NET 8 SDK is installed in your machine. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now one more thing is happening, right? So that is fine, right?
Sir,
Yes,
sir, I have a question.
yes.
Uh, Sir, when we install operating system, that time also framework automatically downloaded. Then why again during installation of Visual Studio?
So what framework
It's
are installed, right? What framework installed when you install operating system?
I think generally latest one.
So what latest?
I never checked, but I remember when
Whatever
we
you are
install
asking.
Windows 10.
Yes, so whenever you are installing Windows 10, it is installing a .NET framework runtimes. Without runtime, how it can execute the .NET application? See, for Windows operating system, if you want to execute something, that runtime is required or not?
Yes, required.
So that runtime is what, right? Whatever application, for example, in my machine, right? Whatever here you can see, these are also one software or not.
Yes.
So for running the software, we need the runtime environment or not?
Yes, yes, required.
This runtime environment are nothing but .NET framework part. So they are getting installed into the operating system when you install the operating system. But here, we are not here to run the application. We are here to
Okay.
develop the application. But developing the application, we need the right environment setup or not.
Yes, we need.
So for that purpose, we need to install this .NET SDK,
Got it, got it. Yes, got it, sir.
right? And Visual Studio, guys,
Yes.
remember it supports multiple language. You can develop any type of application starting from right desktop, Windows, web services. Integrated development server means what IIS Express is already right integrated with the right Visual Studio, which you can right you can use to run your application. Code editor definitely highlighting the code completion, code syntax highlighting, right? All these things are going to be provided. Debug application on the fly means while right on the while you are running the application, you can also debug the application. Inbuilt right version control integration means you can integrate right TFS, you can integrate right Git into the Visual Studio. Database tools means right it also provides SQL Server Object Explorer, right, where you can also view the SQL database structure, right, how it looks. So these are the different features which is provided by Visual Studio, right? So now this is how you need to install the Visual Studio, and this is how you need to make sure the .NET 8 runtime and .NET SDKs are installed, and please make sure to install .NET 8 SDK. For example, you have installed Visual Studio before 1 year or before 2 year. At that time, SDK 8 point was not there. Let assume at that time .NET 6 is the latest version. So in that case, right, in that case, you will not find this .NET 8 runtime, and you will not see this 8.0 point whatever the version I'm showing here. You will not see this one. That means your application containing some SDK, but it is not containing the latest .NET SDK. But for developing the application currently, we need the .NET latest SDK. So now what I'm going to show you how to install the .NET SDK right on our application. So what is the latest version of .NET SDK, how we can install? So for this purpose, we need to follow some steps. First of all, we need to visit to the official website of .NET. We need to choose what version we need to select. We need to download the installer. Similarly, we need to run the installer, and we need to verify the installation. And it is a very very easy thing. So what you need to do, you just need to go to this page, right? So this is the page where you can download .NET 8, right? So here you can see .NET 8.0. If you want to install .NET 6.0, you just need to write 6.0, right? So this is how, right, you can get the latest version. Now, here, if you come to this part, right, here you can see there are two sections, right? Here there are two sections. One is SDK and another one is ASP.NET Core runtime. So if you are building the application, then what you need? You need the .NET SDK. If you are running the application, then you only need to install this one. And when you are installing the what I can say operating system for running the software, which is required by the operating system, he is installing this runtimes on your operating system. But for now, what we want to run any application which is developed by someone else, or we are going to develop and run our application. We are going to develop and run our application. So for that purpose, what we need to do, we need to install this .NET SDK. If we on your production server, SDK is not required, because in the production we are not going to install Visual Studio. We are not going to develop the application, compile the application. On production, we are going to run the application. For running the application on the production environment, this runtime is more than sufficient. Now, while installing the SDK, you can see there are two things. One is operating system, and another one is operating system. You can say Linux, Mac, and Windows, and this is all. All actually, I don't have any idea related to what it is all. I have not done any R&D. And here you can see for different operating system, we can have a different installer and binaries. And similarly, here you can see this Linux operating system having different installer, different binary files. Mac operating system having different Mac, for Mac there is no installer option, binary file is there. For Windows, you can see this is the different installer and a different binary files. So the point that what you need to remember is so this flexibility what they are providing for developing and running the .NET Core application on different operating system, this is not available on .NET Framework. On .NET Framework, only Windows available. But now, for developing the application, we can use Linux and Mac. For running the application, we can also use different runtime environment. Now, if you are developing the application, you develop the application using any operating system. You can take that MSIL code and go to other operating system, and that operating system should have the runtime installed, and that runtime ASP.NET Core runtime will take the responsibility to execute the application code. Clear, guys?
I have one question.
Yes.
We have like the x64, x86. What is this ARM64?
See, these are the binary files, right? These are the binary files means what? Different version of the operating system, right? Based on the what I can say. I mean, exactly ARM. What exactly? I have no idea, right? But what is see, ARM means this is just you can consider a different name they are providing, right? Based on the processor, or what I can say, the type of operating system, 64-bit, 32-bit, right? Some kind of processor, right? Accordingly, they are providing this thing. So this is just a name. or you can say even I'm not sure, right? What is ARM?
Because
ARM because
here in
I'm
that
not aware about.
okay,
See,
because
for Linux
here in
and
that
Mac,
Windows, sorry,
right?
please.
That is what I'm saying. I'm not aware about Linux and Mac. For Windows, I know x64 means 64-bit. This is x86 means I hope it is going to be 32 bits. And this ARM 64 means I think it is going to be some right exactly. I'm not sure, but
Okay,
if you guys know that that's well and fine. I'm not.
no issue.
I don't have any idea exactly what is this
Out of
ARM.
out of curiosity, just asked.
Right? I'm not sure. Even I'm not sure because we are not giving more focus to this thing, right? So
Okay,
we
fine.
only need to install the right runtime. Okay. So based on the operating system, you have to choose the runtimer, or you can install the right SDK as per your development environment. In development environment, you need to install SDK, and in runtime environment, you need to install the runtime. I mean, in the production environment. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Right? If you are going
Okay,
into
sir.
older version, you can also go with the this one, right? So all the older versions are provided, right? You can install any of the patch as per your requirement, right? So once you install this one, right, then it is going to right download the right. Otherwise, see, if this is one option, other option is that if you are using Windows operating system, directly you can go to this page, right, where you can directly install the .NET SDK, right? Download .NET SDK 64-bit, right? Directly you can also install. So once you download this one, right, then what you need to do, you just need to double click on the installer file, which will open this page. Here you need to install the .NET SDK. And once the .NET SDK is installed, you will get this message, successful message. And here you can close the message and then you can verify, right? You can write the .NET command. You can type .NET info to info or .NET list SDK, right? To see the list of SDKs are installed. Now, if you want to see what is the latest version that is installed on your machine, right? So .NET version command you need to write .NET hyphen version. So this will give you the latest version that is installed on your machine. Clear? Clear, guys? How to
Okay,
install
sir.
Visual Studio and how to install .NET
Yes,
SDK.
sir.
If,
Clear.
if,
Yes,
if
sir.
you have if you
Yes,
have not
sir.
installed, right, then please follow the steps and download the .NET SDK. And please make sure, right, .NET SDK 8, any version 0.1, right, any. So the major version should be this one, minor version and patch update. It can be anything, but major should be it should be installed, right? Now, the last thing, right, what I'm going to discuss in today's session is how to download and install Visual Studio Code. So this is also one of the popular editor, which is completely free and open source, which is also provided by Microsoft. It is available for all the operating system, Windows, Linux, and Macs, right? So how to download and install? You need to go to the official website, select the operating system, run the installer, follow the install, right? Whatever the instruction wizard is provided, please follow and complete the installation. To download this thing, right, what you can do is you can visit this website, which code.visualstudio.com, and here you can see this download button is there. Click on this download button. Once you click on this download button, you can see there are the three different flavor. One is Windows operating system, one is Linux operating system, one is micro Mac operating system. As per your operating system, you need to select the appropriate. Suppose Windows, you have to click here. So once you click here, the installer is going to be download. Once the installer is download, right, then you can follow the on-screen steps, right? Install. First of all, you need to accept the aggregate license. Then you need to provide the location where you want to install Visual Studio Code. Then you need to give a name to your editor. You can go with the default name Visual Studio Code, or you can give any other name. Then do you want to create a desktop icon? Then you have to select the one and add the path required for sales restart, right? Even this is required for, right, if you're developing Angular or other kind of applications, right? Then you need to click on this install button, right? If you want, and once you start click on the install button, it will install Visual Studio, and finally you will get this message, right? And again, guys, remember this is also going to be a cross-platform support. As it is cross-platform means, see, guys, remember Visual Studio is not a cross-platform. The application what we are going to develop using Visual Studio, those applications are going to be cross-platform. But Visual Studio is a Windows product. It can be only used going to be used on Windows. But Visual Studio Code, this is a cross-platform. You will get intelligent supports, right, while writing the code. It is also going to provide the support for Git integration. So you can also debug the application, right, while running. It is also providing internal terminal support, right, where using which you can compile the code, you can build the code, you can publish the code, you can run the code, right? I will show you this thing, right, with one example, right? I will show you, right, one example using Visual Studio Code also. So rich ecosystem system and extension means what, right? So using Visual Studio, you can develop Python, you can write, add some extensions for Python, JavaScript, TypeScript, C#, right? You can develop applications like React application, Angular application, Vue application, right? You can also use some right containers like Docker and Kubernetes. Everything is possible using Visual Studio Code. And also code navigation and refactoring functionality is also provided. Means you can write go to all definition, find all references of a right class file, right? Everything is possible using also Visual Studio. So these are the things, right? What it is mandatory to be ready with your system before joining tomorrow, right? Because from tomorrow we are going to start the application development, right? And then as we progress, right? Once I start discussing the entity framework, or before entity framework, or I will show you, right, how to download and from where to download and install, right, SQL Server, and how to download and install, right, SQL Server Management Studio. Similarly, right, when I'm going to start discussing, right, what I can say, ASP.NET Core Web API concept, right? At that time, I'm going to show you how to download and install, right? How to download and install Fiddler and Postman, because these are the client testing tool which we are going to use throughout this course. So this is all about all our demo sessions, right? And now, right, if anybody having any question, right, they can ask. And guys, remember, whatever I have discussed, I'm not going to repeat these things. So these are the things which I have covered. Sorry, this is I have not covered. I'm going to discuss this thing in detail, right? What is how to create, right? For example, right? So this doesn't make any sense, right? How to create your first web application, right? How it is going to run, going to discuss tomorrow. Because, right, I'm going to start developing the project, explaining the project file, main method, right? In process, out of process, asking custom web server, right? Everything we are going to discuss one by one. Now, if anyone having any question, they can ask me. And guys, remember, only 20 seats are left. Those who wants to confirm their seat, right, they can make the payment. The payment screenshot you can take. This is the payment details. If anyone join for the first time today, they can also ask any question. I'm happy to answer now.
Sir, uh, just now we have installed Visual Studio 2022, right? So while installing, we have selected a .NET SDK 8.0.
Yes.
After that, I have changed my mind. So I want to run this Visual Studio 2022 with the .NET SDK 6.0. Is it
Yes,
possible?
yes. Why not possible? See, currently I'm showing how many SDKs are installed on my machine.
Almost 6.
Right. So now let me give you one idea. Right. So, okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm opening Visual Studio 2022. I'm just showing, right? Right, whatever you are asking, right? So this is my web application I'm going to develop. I'm going to develop a empty project, right? I'm selecting here. So here, can I use the .NET 6 and develop the application? Yes, why not? Same Visual Studio, .NET 6 I can use. But what is important? That .NET 6 must be installed on your machine. You can have multiple version of a .NET framework. Right here you can see .NET 6 is there, .NET 7 is there, .NET 8 is there, and here you can also use 2.1, 2.2, 3.0, 3.1, any version you can use. Clear?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Okay. Sir, is it possible to install SDK through command line?
Yes, that is possible, right? I'm going to discuss how to use a command line, right, CLI tools, right, the command line interface to develop, run, build, publish, everything is possible. I'm going to show you how to create a project using command line interface, right? So using that command prompt, I'm going to discuss.
Sir, so now the SDK and the .NET framework both are same.
So .NET framework and SDK, you are right. I think you have not understand. So what is .NET SDK? So .NET SDK means it is providing these things. It is providing you the compiler. It is providing you the runtime, and it is providing you the class libraries, right? Class library. And also while installing class libraries and while installing Visual Studio and all these things, and also, right, you can also install the ASP.NET framework, right? Means these are the different workload, what I can say. See, while installing Visual Studio, right, you can also select, right, what are the framework you need to support, like ASP.NET, like desktop, right? So these are things you can select, right, from the workload. Visual Studio, while installing, you can select the workload. I mean, what are the different things you need to install? So this compiler runtime, these are the things which you need to develop the application. So this SDK, if I'm saying .NET SDK 8 means what? Now .NET, the compiler, the runtime, the class libraries, what I'm going to use, that is compatible with the .NET SDK. Getting my point?
Yes, sir.
So if I'm developing the application using .NET 8 SDK, and if I'm going to run that application using .NET SDK 6, is it going to work? No, it will not work. Why? Because whatever the libraries I'm using here, that is compatible with .NET SDK 8, then how these things are going to work with the other version of the runtime environment? So that is what you need to understand. This is the reason why you can see many times, right? Wherever your application is hosted, many times security patch updates are happening, right? That is going to be right handled by your infra team, and these things are very, very important. So you need to be very serious, very clear about this thing. What SDK I'm using, what runtime environment I'm using, what class libraries are I'm using. Is it compatible with the version where I'm running my application? If not compatible, then how it is going to run? Many times we are getting this issue. Sir, it is working on my machine, but when I install, right, when I host it to the server, it is not working. How it will work? You are using .NET SDK 8 and developing the application, and in your production server, it is using .NET SDK, right, the runtime 6. So how your SDK, right, the application which is targeting .NET 8, and you are trying to run that application using .NET 6 runtime environment, how it is going to work? This is a common thing, common problem, right? Many developers are saying, sir, it is working on my machine, but it is not working on the production or in the other environment. Getting my point?
Yes, sir.
How many of you face this problem that it is working on my machine but not working on the server? Did you face this kind of issue? Yes, I generally face this kind of issue when I start my career. But later I figure out what is the major reason. The major reason is version compatibility. Clear, guys?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
So please take a screenshot of this one. If anyone wants to continue right from tomorrow, our main session is going to be start by tomorrow, right before evening. I will share you the Telegram group links, the private Telegram group with only the paid members. And from tomorrow onwards, whatever the sessions and whatever the documents I'm going to provide, only to the paid member or enrolled member, right? No demo sessions from tomorrow onwards, right? Anyone having any question, right? If anyone joined for the first time today, they can also ask me any. If anyone having any question, they can ask.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, sir. I made a payment for this course, but as you, if it would be great if you can add me in C Sharp group.
I've already told, right? I have already informed, right? I have not yet created the private Telegram group, right? Once I create the
For C
Telegram,
Sharp.
right? Yeah, I'm coming to your point. And once I create that
Okay.
private Telegram group, in that group only I'm going to share the CSR Telegram group so that anybody, right, all the members can join, right? So it is very difficult for me, right, to share the link one by one, right? I think 10, 15 members, right, they have already added into the CSR group. They just ping me on Telegram. I have added them, right? If you are in a hurry, you can ping me in the Telegram. I will add you into the CSR Telegram group, right? Otherwise, you can wait till tomorrow or day after tomorrow, right? I'm going to provide the link in the group so that right, all the members they can join.
Okay, sir.
Excuse
Thank
me? Excuse
Sorry?
me?
Yes, please.
What about the completed ASP.NET Core? The completed one, if you want to be added.
Yeah, that is what I'm saying now. See, what I have not yet created the Telegram group.
No,
Whatever
no, no.
promise I
I
have
meant
done,
no.
I'm coming to your point. Just wait. Similarly,
Okay.
the way I'm going to give you access to the CSR group, right, where you can join. In the same manner, I'm also going to provide you the link, right, of my completed Telegram, right, completed ASP.NET Core session group. You can join
Oh,
similar.
okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
But for
Thank
now,
you.
I have not created that private Telegram group for this batch, right? Once I create, I will share whatever promise I have done. I'm going to deliver.
Okay, it's clear. Thank you very much. Thank you. Nice one. Thank
Sir, while developing the application, will you be telling about something about Git also? So that will be
Git
pushing forward.
repository, right?
Yeah.
See, Git means what, right? So to be right. So I have planned how, right? So I'm not going to share the code, right, to you guys on Git because I want you guys to write the code on your machine. But at some point of time, I will take 2 to 3 sessions, right, to explain how exactly Git repository working, how to check in, how to check out, how to pull, how to write request for code review, right? All these things I'm going to discuss, right, so that you will get a clarity. But while I'm developing the right, but once the as you start progressing the sessions, right, I'm not going to share the code through Git repo. I'm
No,
going to
not
provide.
it's not about your Git, so that we can create a Git account and we
Exactly.
can
So
push our code over there.
I'm going to give in detailed information. Na? So how to create an account, right? How to add a project to the Git repo, how to do check-in, how to do checkout, how to pull request, right? How to send write code review. All these things I'm going to discuss. You will get a completely picture, right? How Git repo is working. Clear?
Yeah, I have one question. In that C sharp tutorial, whatever is there. So in the first session, whatever just you are showing that document, but I am not seeing any document in that. So is it similar to whatever there in that website, or how exactly?
Hey, the C# sessions, right? I think the documents are very similar, right? Because that C# session I have taken right before 2 years ago. And the document at that time I have prepared and already available on my website.
Okay,
But
so
with
it is
this
similar
current,
to.
yes, similar. But for this current ASP.NET Core batch, the document are going to be completely changed. The examples are going to be completely changed. So whatever document I'm sharing and whatever the document I'm going to share in this training program, right? Whatever example I'm going to provide here are going to be completely different.
Okay, one more thing, like in that Git, whatever you are going to cover, so you are going to cover the tag, how we are doing the tag and all those things.
Well, once I start a concept, I'm going to discuss from the basic to the advanced concept, whether it is Git repository, whether it is entity framework core concept, whether it is ASP.NET Core identity, anything, right? Anything, if I'm discussing, I'm going to give you from the basic to the advanced level knowledge,
Okay.
Wow. Great. That's nice. Good.
right? Yep. Next question, please, if anyone have.
Sir, I have one question. It's like not related to this. I actually wanted to learn something on system design. So can you suggest a book or anything for system design?
So,
What book should be better?
so what system design exactly you want?
I mean, how like if we want to think from a system architecture view, from that point of view, how to
See,
categorize
see,
things and how to prioritize
what
the
I'm going to discuss.
components.
See, right. So basically, for example, if you want to develop one project, then how you can think in terms of a project? What are the different kind of models that what I can think? In each model, what are the functionality I need to provide? So if I'm going to provide this kind of functionality, then how should be the database is going to be designed? So this kind of knowledge you want or something else?
Yeah, yes, like this.
So, right. So that is what I'm going to discuss, right? So don't worry. I'm going to develop right different kind of a system, right? For example, right, currently in my current batch, right, I have developed one project, right? Let me open that one. Right. So basically, suppose I'm developing with this application, right? So hotel management, hotel booking application. So here, what are the different kind of models? What you can think in each model? What are the kind of functionality you want to provide? So if I'm going to provide this and model, so what are the functionality I need to provide? Once I decide what are the functionality and what are the models, then I need to think in terms of what are the tables that what should be related to each model. Then what are the tables I'm going to define? So if I'm defining the table, then what should be the relationship between the tables, right? All these things I'm going to cover. So I have already given the information that the 5 to 6 real-time project I'm going to discuss. So 5 to 6 real-time project means what? Means I'm going to start from the thinking to the implementations. So how you can think in terms of a project development to how to implement it, how to implement whatever you are thinking, how to make implementation. That is also I'm going to discuss. Clear?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Question, please.
Sir, say parallelly we are also developing one application and we got stuck somewhere. Will you help out?
So what kind of a thing, if it is related to right your personal project enhancement development, definitely I can help. But if it is related to your company project, I can't because this is beyond the right what I can say protocol.
No, it's a personal one.
Yeah, definitely. See, that is why you are joining now. If you are facing some difficulty, right, understanding the concept project, if you are stuck somewhere, if you are not understanding, right, how to implement this functionality, what should be the best approach? Definitely, I'm here to help.
Okay, thank you.
Right, because in my previous session, right, one guy asked me, "Sir, can you please write the code for my project where I'm working?" So, do you think that this kind of things I'm going to do? You are developing the project. I'm going to write the code. How is it possible? And he's saying, sir, I will pay you. So what payment you are talking about? So it completely right something right which is out of the bound, right? So whatever possible for me, 100% I'm going to do. But if you are thinking something which is out of the context, then I cannot help in that case, right? For example, people right before few days, one guy calling me at night 3 a.m. Do you think that at that time I'm available to take your call and clarify all your doubts? Is that the right time to, is this the approach to, right, discuss something with me? So that is what we need to, so as a professional, right, we need to think about not only ourselves, but also, right, to whom we are going to talk. We also need to be consider them as a professional, right? So professionalism is very, very important, right? Sure, if you are stuck anywhere, right, even, right, you can ask and I can definitely help. Next question, please, guys, if anyone have.
Uh, it's like out of context, but is there any like a for the TSA? Like, is there anybody providing some for like the backgrounds? I just wanted to know because I am not from CS background. So that
So mostly right for DSA, right? What I can tell you is right. There is a very good right Udemy course by Mr. Abdul Bari, right? Just go and watch right his videos. He explained the DSA concept very well.
It's from Udemy or?
Yes, it's from Udemy, but that is on C, not on C sharp.
Okay.
But for learning, right? But for learning DSA, I think it is best programming language is C. Because here in Caesar, right, all the DSA, right, linked list, tree, graph, right, stack, queue, everything is already provided to us by right Microsoft. We do not need to think anything about them. But if you want to develop your own, right, even you can also use C, C++, right, right, any programming language. But for that purpose, first of all, you need to understand the concept, and he explained the concept very well.
Okay. Thanks.
Who did you say explain the concept very well?
Mr. Abdul Bari, you can find his videos right on Udemy.
Abdul Bari, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Abdul Bari. Thank you.
Next question, please, guys. Okay. So I'm thinking there is no more question from anyone, right? So I'm going to stop the session, right? Whoever wants to continue in this session, please do the payment. Only 20 seats are available. And from tomorrow, there is no free demo sessions. Main sessions are going to be started. And completely, it is going to be the real-time application development training. Right? Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you very much. Nice one. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you, Pranay.
Thank you all. Bye. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.